Hey guys, welcome back. So we're back out here trying to gather up some more firewood. We're gonna cut down that hickory tree that we looked at last time where the top was blown out of it. We're gonna get that tree cut down, and then we're gonna try our best to see what it takes to get that one dragged out of the woods. So since the last video, I went ahead, I bought 2 more sections of chain, and that's an extra 40 feet of chain that we can reach out there further into the woods, and hopefully we'll be able to hook up to the log and drag it out here to the hayfield, where we can then pick it up with the grapple and take it up to the firewood shed. I don't know if that's gonna be enough to reach or not, but first thing we gotta do is get this tree cut down. So here's the hickory tree that we're gonna cut down. You see the top of it's gone. There's just a couple limbs left on it. And around the base of the tree, of course, there's a bunch of limbs probably when the top fell out. So there's a bunch of debris around here. We're gonna clean this up a little bit, cut this all up, and get me probably an escape route where I can run that way after I cut the tree down. Now, I want this tree to fall right beside this one. I actually want it to go down like right here toward the tractor. So hopefully there is at least one limb right here that it might catch, but hopefully it will not get hung up and fall that direction is what we're shooting for. But we're gonna clean this area up a little bit, and then we'll start cutting this down. So I ended up bringing the Husqvarna chainsaw out here today. I had dinged up the chain doing demolition on the barn back there, so I sharpened it up and I wanted to see whether it would cut okay. It's still actually dull. It's not cutting very well, but it's actually not long enough to cut all the way through that tree, and I'd prefer to have a longer bar when felling a tree like this. So I'm gonna go back and grab the steel chainsaw with the 25-inch bar, and then we'll finish the last 3 inches of that cut, get it on the ground. Well, it ended up doing what I was afraid it might do. It ended up catching this limb on this next tree, and the top of this is just about 2 foot too long, or it would have just gone under that limb. So now that it's hung up, this is kind of a dangerous situation. You don't want to be anywhere near this when it's going to fall. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do, I'm just going to tie a strap to this as high as I can, and then we're going to yank on it from as far away as we can so that we're nowhere near this thing when it falls. So we've got a strap around the tree, and then we've got chain coming all the way back here where we actually have a come along on the tree. We're going to crank on this come along and hopefully get that tree to fall over. And that's exactly where I wanted it to fall. At least we got that accomplished. It's right here with the tip of it right on the trail leading out. So, not exactly the way I wanted it to go, but at least it's on the ground and nobody got hurt. All right, so we got the tree down. It's probably, I'd say, a little longer than 40 feet long, the trunk of this. And one thing I want to point out, one thing I noticed while I was messing with this is this right here. There's a bunch of, you probably can't see it, that's fencing. And there was fencing sticking out of it. There's a little bit fencing sticking out there. You can see where we cut the fencing off right there. There was some actually sticking out right here above the notch. So there's fencing going through the base of this. I'm not sure how high up it goes, but that was a little worrisome because I know there's an old fence line that went across the ridge here. And apparently this tree grew right through that old fence. So the dogs actually weren't around here when it fell. So they just came up, must have heard it fall, and then they came over to see what was going on. So I'm gonna go ahead now and I'm gonna trim all the limbs off of here so that it's just the trunk so it can't get hung up on anything like last time. And then hopefully we got enough chain we can drag this out of here. So I've got just enough chain where I was able to tie on to the very end of the log. So I can't cut it up into pieces in there. I need to drag it out first. So we're gonna hook onto it with the tractor. We're just gonna take it slow and hopefully not break anything, but we're just gonna take it slow and drag it out. So we've got the log drug about 40 feet so far, and the front of it is starting to dig in a little bit as it's wanting to come up and out to the hayfield here. And we're rubbing on a bunch of these small trees. It's making me a little bit nervous dragging a log this long. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the last 10 feet of it off, get that weight off the back of it. And we've drug it far enough now, we should be able to hook onto that back half and drag it out separate. But I'm gonna go ahead and just take some weight off of it, and it'll just make me feel a lot better as we're dragging it out. All right, I've got the very last piece left, and I think I screwed up. So I probably should have just drug out the whole thing, because now that I've got a nice square end on there, that's going to end up digging into the ground, and that's not going to want to slide out of here. So I'm going to go ahead and try to drag the log out with the tractor, kind of like what we did earlier. But I am going to go ahead and clear a couple of these trees. I'm not going to make a trail per se, but I am going to make it where I can at least back the tractor in here a little bit further, make it a little bit easier. Well, I tried to roll it this way because it's going to end up hitting a tree. I may just go ahead, tug it just a little bit farther, and then I'm going to go ahead. I still got my come along over there. Use my come along to steer the tree this direction so it doesn't hit that tree when it comes out. Dang thorn bushes. Well, I think I can say that I was not happy with the way anything went today. After it's all done and said, that is not the way I want to skid logs out of the woods. That was just way too much trouble. It was way too far to try to drag the logs, and I was tearing up the hayfield today. It ended up, the last 2 days it got into the 40s, so the ground wasn't completely frozen today, so I ended up tearing up the hayfield a little bit, rutting it up with the tractor. So definitely wasn't happy with the way the whole day went. I mean, everything ended up just being more of a hassle than I wanted it to be. So why did I go to all that trouble to try to take those out as logs? Well, one, I'm trying to find a way, of course, to handle the wood less, but I think this ended up being more work in the end. And the other thing is that ended up being a pretty good size hickory tree. I'm not sure whether they're big enough, if any of those are big enough that I could take them and have them cut into lumber. But that's probably the main reason I wanted to get them out, in case I could use them as a saw log. Not that I'm going to get a sawmill and cut them up myself, but there's a sawmill not too far away, and then there's people that go around and do that for a job, right? They have portable sawmills and go up and cut people's trees. And I may consider, if one of those is big enough, I maybe consider keep one of those and have it sawed into wood. But that just ended up being a total hassle today. If I would have cut that up into firewood into like 18-inch long rounds, and I could have probably cut it up and hauled it out in half the time. It would have been a lot more labor, but it would have been probably quicker in the end. I had to keep on running back and forth just to get stuff to try to get the logs out, like getting the come along to get it to fall over. That was a whole nother story right there. But then I used the come along again to try to get the log onto the trail. Yeah, it ended up being a hassle. I went and got the log jack, the timber jack, to try to roll the log, which I couldn't get it to roll. Finally got it to roll using the come along, rigging the chain up so that it would roll the log. And then after that, it drug out of the woods okay. But anyway, that just, overall, the whole day did not go the way I planned it. But let's go ahead. We'll go take some measurements on these logs and see whether you guys think that they're big enough to actually put on a sawmill or not. I'm not for sure with hickory. So let's just go look. So we'll go ahead and take a measurement from the small end. So this one here is probably somewhere around the 14-inch mark on that one. And then this one over here, go this way, try to get the smallest dimension. We're probably sitting around the 12-inch mark on that one. So I'm not sure on this hickory, what, do you go ahead and use this wood, or are you only looking at the heartwood? I mean, if you're only trying to saw up this small section in the middle, there's no way that's big enough. I'm not sure with hickory how it's handled. Is there truly a sapwood here? Is it this right here? Or is it this whole blonde section right here? So how much of this are you going to try to cut into the lumber? So if it's the whole thing, then there's enough there to be able to get some boards out of these, maybe both of these. So this one is somewhere just under 12 feet. And this one is just about 11 feet 4 inches. So both of these, there's at least 11 feet there to use on each one of those. So the very top of the tree, this one right here, that one's probably closer to 14 feet long, but that one's definitely going to be firewood. I'm going to hold off on those two and try to decide whether I should hold on to them for lumber or turn them into firewood. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think those logs are actually going to be big enough to turn into some kind of lumber? Or should I go ahead and just cut them up into firewood? I do have a small pile of hickory over here that we split up not too long ago. And hickory is sought after. A lot of people will buy hickory. They look for it because that's what they want to use in their smoker. So a lot of hickory smoked meats, so a lot of people look for hickory firewood. So I've definitely been keeping what I have to the side. I've kept that separate in case I do want to sell that to somebody or use it myself. So far, trying to pull logs out of the woods and bring them up here to cut them up has not gone anywhere near the way I want it to go. It's ended up just being more of a hassle and more work to try to get them out. So I think I still want to be able to do it. So I think the way I'm going to try next is I'm going to try probably with just using the four-wheeler. If you try to just drag the log out with the four-wheeler, it's not going to work. You actually have to, or it's not going to work very well. So you're going to have basically a log hauler or a log arch. It's basically a little trailer that hitches up to your four-wheeler, and you use it to lift the log up in the air, and then you drag it out with the four-wheeler. And I think it'll be a lot easier. A four-wheeler will be a lot more maneuverable in the woods, and it's probably more economical for what I'm doing here. I don't need to go spend $5,000 on a skidding winch to hook up to the tractor to pull out 3 or 4 logs a year. So I think I got enough metal, I think, in the barn to be able to weld one together. The trouble will be figuring out how I'm going to do the wheels, but I think that's what I'm going to try. I think I'm going to try to build something where I can maybe pull the logs out with a four-wheeler. That's going to be the next try. I think I'm done trying to drag them out with chains with the tractor. It's just not the way I think I want to do it. Well, guys, I think that's going to be it for today's video. I think I'll decide what to do with those logs after I get some comments. I may try to message a few people that actually cut up lumber for a living and try to get their opinion on what I should do with a hickory log. And then after that, I'll cut up what needs to be firewood some other time. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching.